Hey everyone, welcome back. It's episode 123 of the Diet Diaries. I'm super excited. I have a really special guest here today, Caralyn Mirand Koch. I hate the word following, but I'm going to say following her on Instagram for a long time, and she's had a huge impact on me. Carolyn was a curve model and is now a creator online and the founder of the Properly Fitting Bra Club, which personally changed my life when I finally went to get fitted for a properly fitting bra. And I asked her if she'd be willing to share some of her time and come on as a resource for you guys, for the listeners, because she's been such an incredible resource for me as someone living kind of in a curvier plus size body and navigating that in a very public way. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so truly honored and humbled to be a tiny, tiny part of your journey. So thanks for letting me come on and share a little bit more about mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it would be great just to kind of hear a little bit about your background. Like, I know you started as a curve model. What was that like? How old were you kind of already kind of being exposed like more in the media, maybe at like a somewhat younger age, and then how that kind of transitioned into the work you're doing now on social media?
Sure. It was actually a total fluke, kind of how I got started. I'll give you the short version, but feel free to cut me off because I do get a little lengthy
All
here. But
good.
17 years old, I was a senior in high school. My mom told me to go online and look up some scholarship information for college. I was applied and accepted to go to college. Instead of doing that, I was submitting my senior glam shots. I know everyone had them. Online, Tyra Banks was having a teen plus size modeling competition. So if you were a teenager and above a size 12, you were eligible to enter. And we'll come back to the term plus size.
Okay.
Um, so, long story short, I ended up being a runner up of the competition. They flew my mom and I out to New York and we competed in like a mini America's Next Top Model type format. I don't know if you remember her daytime TV show, The Tyra Show,
Yeah.
but it was 2 episodes on her Tyra show and I ended up being runner up. And, at 17 years old, I thought, this was my hopes and dreams were crushed. It was the end of the road. I was a failure. But little did I really know that this was only truly the beginning for me.
Yeah.
Um, Fast forward, my parents are both educators. I, knew that I wanted to go to school. So I continued on, started my freshman year of college, still kind of dabbled here and there, tried really hard to get signed with a modeling agency. When I was a sophomore in college, I was signed by a legitimate modeling agency. And from there, kind of began securing some of my first big clients. Macy's was one of my first big ones. Deb Shops, if you remember,
Okay.
was one of my consistent clients. So where I went to school up at Clarkson University is like the most far north you can get in New York State, and about 2.5 hours from a legitimate airport. So it was definitely not the fashion capital of the world, but I was a hustler and I was committed to making it work. And managed to have a dual degree in business and psychology, and the school really truly embraced me and treated me like a student with her own business. So upon graduation, I was kind of faced with this decision, do I go on like many of my peers and start working for these Fortune 500 companies, or do I kind of pursue the unknown and take the unbeaten path and um, you know, see where this thing could go, because
Mhm.
I really had not been able to give modeling 100% of my time because I was a full-time student. So ultimately I decided to I turned a job offer down, moved back home to Buffalo, New York, which was 5 minutes from an airport, where I was a lot easier to maneuver and fly in and out of New York and Philadelphia and Miami and California, kind of where a lot of these jobs were happening.
Mhm.
And I would say about 2 years post graduation, I graduated in 2014. Around 2016 is when I kind of started things shifting online.
Okay.
Um, And normally I'd walk into a casting, which is kind of like an interview for models. They go in, they kind of look you up and down, they go through your portfolio. And the first question the casting director asked me was, how many followers do you have on Instagram? And this,
Interesting.
I vividly remember this. It was like fall 2016. I stood up proudly and I said, I have 10,000 followers. And the guy like looked at me up and down. He laughed. He said, well, you better step it up, honey. So for me, that was truly such a pivotal moment of like, whoa, wait a second. Why does it matter? Who
Matter, right?
cares if I have followers? And if I have to have followers, who are the people that I'm trying to attract? And what kind of content do I have to put out there to attract that audience? So
Right.
that really inspired and encouraged a deep dive within myself to figure out who I was, and then
Yeah.
the last versus who I wanted to be online. And it's so easy, and anyone could truly post a beautiful photo. But how do I cultivate and curate a community?
Yes.
And then from there, things kind of started to shift. But I know back to your original question about um, my body and being kind of hyper aware in
Hmm.
the modeling industry. It's actually was quite fascinating because for the first time in my life, I was being hired and fired based off of how I looked. And
Hmm.
in some ways, that was a really beautiful thing because I felt like for the first time I was being encouraged to have curves and um, being, celebrated for my body. But then it also, on the flip side, created some maybe insecurities that I never would have had before.
Right.
So it was a very weird time to have to separate yourself from your body
Yes.
and realize that my self-worth, while it does earn me an income, my body does earn me an income, it's they're not interchangeable, right? So like if
Mhm.
I'm getting hired and fired based off of how I look, it's not necessarily about me or
Yes.
my fault, right? So like they
Yes.
could be looking for a petite, dark skinned model and like I just don't fit
Don't
those
fit that.
categories.
Right.
And that's just not something I can control. So there
Yeah.
was a point where it's like I have to separate myself in the business aspect of that.
I actually think like as someone on the other side of it, like watching everything and knowing you only online, that has come through you come through like so relatable and so yourself, and like it's like a what you see is what you get, and it almost like makes sense. It's like if you're having to separate those two things, and it's like what you're giving people, I don't know, on my end feels like, well, this is who I am as a person, right? Because I follow you for all of that. Like obviously I relate to you because of, your body type and all of that, but it's everything else, like who you are as well. So that
Thank you.
really like that all fits, like kind of hearing you go through that process and then being on the receiving end, I guess, of like the external part of that process.
Well, thank you. There was a point where, like, no matter what I did, someone wasn't happy.
Right.
And so it was like, my hair is too long, my hair is too short. I needed weave. I needed to get a spray tan. My skin was too tan. It was just like my size was good, but I needed to tone my tummy or I needed to tone my arms. Like someone always had a suggestion.
Hmm.
And when you're young and there's no one really looking out for you in that space, it's so easy to get absorbed and like sucked up in that. And
Yeah.
and for a while I did anything anyone told me to do. I was just, hoping to, make everyone happy, but there was a point where I was like, look, I'm never going to make everyone happy. I need to figure out how I look and feel happy. Like,
Yes.
and then people are still going to comment, but like, I need to be able to lay my head down at night knowing that I did my best. I feel my best,
Yeah.
and the rest can move on to the next, or like take it or leave it.
Yeah.
So that's
And then
kind
the
of
people that you attract and the people that eventually followed you and found you, like, appreciate that and value that and aren't looking, to change those things or fix those things. It's like they get it and they value that.
absolutely. And I think, a big thing that, potentially we can get into a little bit later is like, okay, I've been online now since 2016,
Mhm.
and the world is not the same as it was since 2016. And like, we as humans are allowed to change and evolve.
Mhm.
And so while, yes, like at my core, I am still me, but there
Mhm.
are pieces of me that are now like growing and evolving. And it's been interesting that like some people have a hard time with that.
Mhm.
Um,
Are you
but I
referring
think,
to, like, the fact that you're pregnant and having a baby?
yes. And it's wild to me because here I am, like, I've spent the better part of my career building a platform in a community that encourages, that champions, that advocates for, and that is learning alongside other women.
Mhm.
And then to like evolve and people be like upset or question
Mhm.
that, it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. So like I'm allowed to cheerlead for you.
Right, but you can't
But
support me.
right. So it's just been super interesting. And granted, that's like the small minority, but the minority
Sometimes
sometimes is
the loudest.
a lot. um, but I think I just kind of have to keep my head down and stay true to me and know that like my vibe will attract my tribe. So
Exactly, yes. And
that,
I feel like you've been open about that and saying, like, "I'm gonna be sharing stuff about, like, dressing for a pregnant body and what that's like." And I gotta tell you, my son is almost 11, so I'm at a different life stage,
uh,
and I still find what you share and how you talk about it totally relatable because it goes beyond, like, "Oh, how do you dress a bump?" It comes back to,
sure.
like, those internal things about, "How am I feeling good in these clothes? How am I using clothes?" And I actually wanted to ask you about this, about, like, the way you use clothes and hair and makeup to feel more like yourself. And to me, it kind of comes back to that, regardless of, like, what physical state your body is in.
Absolutely. And I find, I mean, just me personally, like people I find online and I can connect and relate to, like regardless of their phase of life, like I still
Yep.
care about them. I still want them to win. I still like, you know, it's actually wild. Like we can't expect everyone to like wake up, work out, eat breakfast, and like live their life, get dressed like the exact same way as you
Yes.
know? And I think that's the beauty of life and friendships, is being able to like maybe learn something new or see a new perspective, or
Mhm.
um, just like have those exposures to other life experiences and things that like makes the world a beautiful place, you know?
Yes.
So for me, it's like, I don't care if you're like about to retire. Like I'm not even close to that, but like you go, girl. Like I want to see you live your life. I want to see what you're gonna do. And I just think no matter what phase we're in, we can
Mhm.
always find something to connect and relate about. Even if
Yes.
it's as silly as like what breakfast cereal you like, you know, like it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be that deep,
No,
right?
but that's what makes us human, are those little things. And you share a lot of that. I think that's why people connect to you. And I share a lot online too, and really make an effort to, like, this is who I am. This is what I do. Like, your body may look different than mine or not. But it's also about, like, what's important to us. How am I showing up? Like, what are my values? I talk about that a lot, like in my coaching work, but it is like, that's what keeps people connected. And I think brings together, like, a real community, like you talked about.
Absolutely. And and I, never claim to know it all or have it figured out. I've always been like, this is my journey and like, let's walk it together. And
Mhm.
I'll share kind of as we go any revelations that I have. But it's just, and again, as you said, like there's just so many pieces of it, whether you can relate or connect to pregnancy at all right now or not. Um, there's always something. You know,
Something.
I talk a lot about body confidence and being comfortable in my body, and this is the first time ever in my life where people want to see my stomach. You know, I've been told for years and years and years, tone your tummy, hide your tummy, like wear shapewear to smooth your tummy. And now everyone's like, let's see that gut, girl.
Hmm.
And it's like, wait, what? Like everything I've been programmed to learn is opposite.
Yeah.
So it's been a super interesting journey that I've been able to kind of, you know, talk about online and share with my community as well.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I find it to be invaluable. So it's, thank you for being so like generous and vulnerable with all of it.
Uh,
Um, so I just wanted to go back a little bit. You started modeling when you were 17 and you mentioned it was for, size 12 and up. And you mentioned, I want to go back to the plus
yes,
size thing. And, I have pretty much been a size 12 since I was in high school. And I was just curious, like what it was like for you to, and at the time I was constantly trying to like diet myself out of that. So I'm like, I would love to hear about what it was like for you to be like, this is my body. I'm actually going to try and use it for something. And what that was like for you then, and even like what it's like for you now.
absolutely. So before we continue, I just want to call out like these labels. People
Yeah.
get really fixated and obsessed and offended by these labels. So back in 2010, plus size was not a dirty word. It represented the segment of an industry that was, you know, really starting to form and take off. Since then, the word has evolved from plus size to full figure, to curve model. So personally, I could care less what you call me. I am so proud to represent curvy women. So none of those terms are offensive, but people will be like, "You're plus size," like, and I'm like, "It's not. That's not a dirty word. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay to use that word, you know." But industry standard, like in the textbook, plus size is defined as um, sizes 12 and up.
Okay.
So this is actually might blow your gasket here, but plus size modeling can start at a size 6, which is wild.
Yeah.
But for me, yeah, I think I was always an early bloomer.
Mhm.
I was just always tall, and I was always just the largest in my class, and um, my body just was naturally a 12, 14, and really has always been. Um, and I've fluctuated, you know, over the years, but I've always consistently been a 14, 16, still to this day. That's just like where my body is
Mhm.
happy to be. And so
Yeah.
I'm cool with it. I mean, um, another term that's been kind of created in later years is this in betweener. I don't know if you've heard that term thrown around.
I've been hearing mid-size a lot, but I haven't heard in betweener.
Mid-size. I know people get really offended, but like you know, personally, you can call me whatever you want, girl. Like I'm proud to be doing what I do and to be representing someone that
Yeah.
maybe relates to me in my size. But in betweener is actually an interesting place to be. I would say it's between like maybe an 8 and a 16. But like the definition of that is like someone who can wear the largest size of standard sizing. So when I say standard sizing, that means like small to XL.
Okay.
And then so on the larger end of the standard size and the smaller end of plus sizes. So like kind of where plus size begins, where it's like sometimes it's large, sometimes it's 0x,
Mhm.
sometimes it's 1x, you know. And I kind of straddle that line between standard and plus.
Okay.
So like sometimes I can get away with wearing, you know, the largest size in one brand and then the smallest size in another. So it can be challenging at times, especially like in my current phase where I don't always have the luxury to size up in garments because I'm already wearing the largest size.
Mhm.
So this is really where I kind of hone in on focusing it on brands that are catering to that full size run, extra, extra small to a 4 or
Yeah.
5X. Like that's where I want to be spending my coin is our
Okay.
brands that are doing that and doing it well, especially in this phase of life where I'm just able to
Yes, go back and forth.
go up and down.
Yeah. You had done, a blog post about that. I shared it with my community around, like,
Oh,
size inclusive brands and, like, all these different terms and how people get caught up in this, and, like,
yes.
I do like, there's other people I follow who use the term mid-size a lot, and people getting offended, like, "You're too big, you're too small, you're too this, you're too that," and in the plus size, in the curve model, like, just like I imagine or have heard there are in, like, straight size modeling where women are traditionally, like, very small bodied and very thin, are there, like, you need to be, like, in this, like, size 12 to 4, like, that's the ideal look for a plus size model? Is there any of that, like, pressure?
The industry has gone through so many waves. I mean, I feel like any industry, there's trends that are constantly coming and going. Um, I will not lie, the size 14 hourglass figure
Mhm.
was and arguably still is the ideal body type. However, in recent years, and I've seen, it go up and down in waves, there's been size 18, um, you know, maybe not hourglass, maybe little fuller through the middle. I've seen size 20 models. I've seen size, like it's been ranging, and the shapes and the sizes have definitely ranged, which I think is a great thing because
Mhm.
plus size curvy bodies do not come in one shape, right? They
Yeah.
come in all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
Um, and I think representation really matters. And it's
Yes.
important to see yourself reflected and know that there's no one way to have a curvy body. There are several different ways that are beautiful and perfect, just as the way they are.
Yeah. Like, I'm, like, gonna get a little emotional, like, that touches me so deeply because, right, you mentioned, like, the size 14, like, hourglass figure. I'm, like, will go kind of between, like, a 12 and a 14, and I carry my weight in my belly, and I'm very, like, straight, so I don't have an hourglass, so it's, like, whenever you see, like, or hear the term, like, curvy, it's always, even in plus size, it's represented as a smaller waist and fuller, like, butt
Hips.
and hips.
Yes.
And to your point about seeing that representation, it's like, well, and even, like, with jeans, like, they have all these companies have, like, the curve fit jeans, and I'm
Yes.
like, well, that's even worse for me. It's like, then I'm even, like, pushing on my stomach more, so it's
Right.
just like to hear that, and, like, that validation of your support for, it's like the representation of all these different types of bodies, and even with, like, because people think plus size, and I think they think, like, one thing, like,
Yes.
that sort of, like, hourglass, fuller, like, bigger hips and tush thing, but it's so much more than that, and, um, that's why, like, I remember when just seeing you, I mean, you're like, I mean, you'll show so much of yourself in, like, lingerie and shapewear and all this, I'm like, yes, like, it feels so good, and that's how we deal with shame, is, like, connecting and knowing that you're not the only one thinking and dealing with these things, so, and that visual representation is so powerful.
Absolutely. And I'll be totally honest with you. When I began sharing about undergarments, I had no intention of like changing the world whatsoever. I was just like, here I am in my body, just like simply existing. And I
Yeah.
didn't realize, I think at the time, how powerful it could be, like that. I don't necessarily need to acknowledge every little thing, like, look at me, I'm a curvy body on the beach, like I deserve an award. Like, no, like I can just be and like live my life
Yeah.
and just exist, and that's powerful. Like we don't have to talk about it, but like
Yes.
you can just see someone maybe that you relate to doing their thing, and um like seeing that, again, representation makes a difference. And again, it doesn't have to be a huge thing or moment, and like, look at me, I'm so like curvy, and like it can you just do it, just be.
Yes.
And I don't think I realized how powerful that could be,
Mhm.
because I was never comfortable with like going over the top about it. I mean, I just always felt like it was like, what is there to talk about? Like, let's just be.
Right. It's like, this is a normal, regular, just another human body. Why do we have to make such a big deal out of it?
Right. Like,
It
I'm not a hero. I'm
Yeah,
just
right.
a girl living my life, you
Yeah.
know? But,
In a way, it's almost like doing that brings even more, like, stigma to it, like, it has to be
right.
called. I think doing it in this just more like,
Yes.
I'm just existing, I'm just living my life, I'm just doing my thing, like, even, like, normalizes it even further, like, this is just a regular human body doing
Yes.
it's just doing my thing.
Right. And you don't have to, like, it doesn't have to be like a big statement or a big moment. Like, it can just
Yeah.
exist.
Yes.
And, um, perhaps like that's what we need to see more of, just
Mhm.
not every conversation needs to be about a curvy body. It
Yeah.
can be about traveling the world. It can be about finding a swimsuit that looks good. Like it doesn't have to be about taking up space,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And it's so funny because I have, like, probably half the makeup products in my cabinet are based on ones that you've suggested, so to that
Oh,
point, like, there's so much else out there, and I would kind of love to hear, like, for me, because I have worked at home in my house even before for COVID for a really long time and spent a lot of time, like, not really, like, getting dressed and, like, putting on makeup and doing my hair, and it started to have, like, this cumulative impact, and over the past year or so, I've been really, like, I get dressed every day in, like, an outfit, and I put on makeup, and I've been spending more time doing my hair, and it's made such a huge difference in how I feel about myself, and I just was, like, curious like, what has been the role of clothes and makeup and hair for you, like, in sort of feeling good in your skin?
so when I started kind of building my online platform, a big thing was like, what value can I add? How can I, um, the community that I was trying to reach were women, other women, and what could I bring to this platform that wasn't just like, oh, look at me in a pretty picture, like a beautiful hair and makeup moment. Like,
Mhm.
so all I really knew at the time were just tips and tricks and things that I was learning on set as a model. So have that be styling, have that be undergarments, have that be hair and makeup and just things that I was learning with these top artists and stylists. So I just began just sharing my learnings and like how I could translate these fashion moments to the everyday woman. So that's really how I started, sharing, from like a here's what I learned,
Mhm.
take it or leave it kind of thing. Um, and I always say this, and I feel like I say it so much, but still there's somebody that forgets out there that anything and everything is preference based.
Yeah.
So if you feel good with braless and flawless and like no makeup, all that, like more power to you. I salute you and I encourage you to do the damn thing, girl. But if you are curious in undergarments or hair or makeup, here are some things I learned,
Right.
and you don't have to do them to be a certain outcome, but here's what I do that makes me feel good, and
Yeah.
perhaps
It works
this
for you.
might feel good for you, but
Yeah.
again, like it's not like you have to do X to be Y. That's not what I'm about. That's not what I'm saying. It's just like hair and makeup is fun for me. Talking
Mhm.
about skincare and beauty and all that is fun. But it's all optional,
Yes.
it's not like make or break.
Right. You don't have
So
to do these things to feel this way.
agreed. And
Yeah.
do if you are gonna do it, you do it because you like it
Mhm.
and you prefer it and not for anyone else or anything else.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, so I wanted to also ask you about the Properly Fitting Bra Club, of course, and
Yeah.
just when you I mean, maybe even when you realize, like, how helpful and impactful it can be, right, to have a good fitting bra and how you kind of, like, carved out this guy I think that's actually how I found you. I think you were on a podcast talking about that, and I'm like, "Oh my god, where has this woman been all my life?"
Uh-huh.
Um, So yeah, I'd love to just hear more about that and how you created it and all that.
Yes. So I started as a lingerie fit model.
Okay.
It sounds a lot like cooler and sexier than it was. Basically, I would stand in a boardroom in sheer undergarments, bra and panties, and I would be there with in meetings for buyers and like major brands like a Nordstrom, major retailers that would be there to buy
Mhm.
the undergarments for the next coming season. And that was such a, I think, fragile time for my self confidence. And, not to toot my own horn, but it kind of takes a lot of balls to stand in in a boardroom with everyone professionally dressed with your lady bits
Yeah.
just on display. And so for me, the way I kind of coped and dealt with it was to pay attention to what they were talking about the fit of the garment, the constructions of the garment, what the functionalities of the garment, how it was supposed to be worn, where it was supposed to be worn, under what, for what brush shape, all those things. And I just became like a little sponge in absorbing. And that was really the first time I had ever been wearing a bra properly.
Hmm.
And so that was something I was like, well, let me maybe share this with my community. Like
Yeah.
maybe this is something that other people would find helpful. And turns out, I think 8 or 9, I think it's either 8 or 9 out of 10 women are wearing an incorrect size. So
Hmm.
I was like, if I can be part of the change to get that number down, let's do it. So I started educating my audience on what a bra is supposed to look like, how it's supposed to feel. If you're thinking about your bra throughout the day, it's time for a new bra. And I saw myself as like this middle woman between the brands and the people. So I was like,
Hmm.
let me tell you where to go. I'm not necessarily a fitter or an expert on every single style that's out there, but I can teach you and share at least the basics so that you know what to expect and like what to go into this process with.
Hmm.
And I just, in my DMs, people were saying like, "Oh, I went and got fitted. My clothes are fitting better. I feel my shoulders are back. I'm just feeling more confident." And so it's like when you have that moment, I call it the braha moment, where you have that your base on, right? Your foundation, your undergarments on, and it makes getting dressed easier because I mean,
Hmm.
raise your hand if you've changed your outfit a million times because you don't have the right bra
Yeah.
or undergarments to go underneath it, right? Like how many
Totally.
times have we dealt with that? So it's like you have your foundation down and then the first thing you put on fits great. And then the rest of your morning goes a little bit easier. And then just like it creates this ripple effect. It's like when you have a good day, then you have a good week and a good life. And if it's as simple as your undergarments, just starting and making you feel good at the very,
Yes.
very base beginning of your day,
Yeah.
oh, like there's so much opportunity there, right?
Yeah.
So I would receive these messages in my DM saying like I went and I got fitted and like I feel great and endless possibilities now. And I would say, welcome to the club, like welcome to the Properly Fitting Bra Club. And so from there, it's really taken on. And I found myself in a place where I was getting like hundreds of DMs a day asking like bra questions. And I really tried to cover as much as I could, but I'm a one woman show over here. So I ended up creating the Properly Fitting Bra Club Facebook group, which has been a tremendous resource for people to troubleshoot and ask each other things and bring all these amazing people together in one place that
Hmm.
we can all learn from each other. And it's not just me speaking one way.
Yeah.
So that's been a beautiful beast.
Yeah.
Based on myself.
What I love so much about it is it's like when I think about it from like a body image standpoint, it's like meeting your body where you're at. And it's not about changing your body, right? This isn't about, oh, I wish I had bigger boobs or smaller boobs. Like these are the boobs I've got. So let me find a bra that's going to kind of like make the most of them and make me feel really comfortable.
Yes.
And that's so powerful. Like you said, like it's like the foundation for so many other things.
Yes, and small boob ladies, they always think like, "Oh, I don't need that." Like, I don't know that.
Yeah.
Small boobs are
Yeah.
just as important as big boobs, and just as worthy and deserving to be fitted.
Yeah.
And also just kind of talking through different phases of life, and
Yeah.
we as women are constantly changing. Why wouldn't our bra size too?
Yes.
And I think people are so quick to spend $5 on a Starbucks coffee, but to invest in a bra
Mhm.
that can make a $10 outfit look like $1,000,000
Mhm.
and vice versa,
Yes.
you can make an $1,000 dress look real cheap real fast if your undergarment game is not on point.
Yeah. It's again, it's so powerful. And I mean, and with like the nipple covers and the belly button, all these things that like you've gotten into about like what it's like to be a woman putting on clothes and to feel really good,
Yes.
um, is just there's all these things you can do without it's like this is not about changing your body. This is
Yeah.
about just being where you are and in the skin you're in and just like I'm just existing as a human. Like
Yes. And none of these options are mandatory. Like,
yeah,
take it or leave it. If you want to
yeah,
free the damn nip, girl.
yeah,
I support you. But
yeah.
if you don't, and if you feel more comfortable having it concealed, here are some amazing
Options.
options that
Yeah,
I bought and tried and learned the hard way, so you don't have to.
yeah. It's just about autonomy, like giving people choices to make their own
Yes.
decisions.
Yes.
Um,
True that.
yeah, yeah, I love that. So I guess just one of the last things I wanted to ask you about was something you mentioned just in the past couple weeks on Instagram. Right. So we've already established and talked about the fact that you're pregnant. And you said you noticed some, I guess, some like a stretch mark on your belly, like in a new spot for the first time. And you
Yes.
shared so candidly, like what it was like to see that and how you responded to it. Um, and I just was wondering if you could share a little bit about that here and sort of how you deal with changes in your body, insecurities that come up. Like what are some of your skills or tools that help you get through that stuff?
Sure. So I will say the one thing that was the most and still is the most powerful for me in my body confidence journey is that it is a journey, not a final destination. I really thought I was going to wake up one day and be confident, bada bing, bada boom, it'd be over. So I think for me, this when that switch went off and was like, oh, like I have to work at this
Hmm.
constantly. It's going to ebb and flow. It's going to come, in different phases in life and just different challenges and just different moments in life. Confidence is fleeting and coming and going. So once I realized and accepted that, I think that has been a really powerful tool for me.
Okay.
But with the stretch marks, um, as I said, I was an early bloomer. I was wearing a bra in fourth grade.
Okay.
I've had stretch marks on my bust and my hips and my stomach since forever, so they were not new to me. But I just happened to like glance in the mirror on the way into the shower, and I saw two little red marks underneath my belly, and I was at first I was like, "What are those?" Because they looked different than what I
Yeah,
knew
the others.
from my other stretch marks, and so I was like, "Huh." That's a stretch mark, I think. Okay. And then just continued on. And like a little while later, I noticed that I noticed. And I made the choice to just continue
Hmm.
without downward spiraling of, oh my God, I need to like buy XYZ cream. I need to do all these things, da 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 da. And like, I just simply noticed
Hmm.
and
That was
accepted
it.
and moved on. I mean, am I
Yeah.
gonna be? Do I need to like hydrate a little bit more? Maybe, but like it's not. I'm not gonna do it because I hate it.
Right. To
And
fix
I
it.
think it's what people don't realize too is like you don't have to like it doesn't have to be love or hate. Like you can be neutral, right? Like I don't necessarily love my stretch marks. That's not what I don't necessarily like need to. Some people do, and again, that's amazing. But I also don't need to hate them, and I also don't need to like have it ruin my day. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's just like a lack of judgment. It's just, this
Yes.
is a fact. I have a stretch mark on my stomach, full stop, right?
Yeah.
And just letting it exist. Like you said before, I love what you said about, like, being on the beach. I'm just existing. I'm just existing,
Yeah.
and this is part of that.
Yes. And
And
it, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
And it just like it's just a tiny little piece of how incredible our bodies are. I mean, like we can go into the whole thing of like
Yeah.
but it's easy to like fall into these little traps of like comparison games and like, oh, this person has the perfect bump and it's
Oh, yeah.
all angles, girl. It's all angles.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. So but yeah, like realizing that like it's okay to notice and be neutral. Like you don't have to love them if you don't want to. um but you also don't have to hate them either.
Yeah. They can just be. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to share this with everyone.
Oh.
Um, can you just share, I mean, not that it's hard to find you, but just your Instagram, your website, you have a newsletter, and just any ways that people can kind of connect with you and be part of your community online?
Absolutely. Thank you. So it's at Caralyn Mirand on everything. It's spelled weird, but I'm sure it'll be
It'll be in the
spelled
show notes. Yeah.
there. So yeah, at Caralyn Mirand, carolynmirand.com. You can find me there and I would love to connect and have you a part of the community. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Carolyn. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.